Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yes, we're very excited. Welcome back to day 2 of BrainHack, and bright and early for some grad students. So you can remember the date. So without further ado, actually, I'm going to hand it right off to Nathan because he is the best moderator. He is. He's such my favorite moderator that we needed to have him back so much.
I'm really happy to be back here to see all these lovely faces at BrainHack. It's been a couple of years since I've been here. But why don't we just get started? This is the possible career trajectories panel. And I am pleased I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Nathan. I used to be a grad student here at CAMH. I used to also be a brain hacker and kind of got my job through BrainHack as well. So, this is relevant. But now I work at Health Canada doing my work as a data scientist. So I basically just look at a lot of information and help people make decisions based on that information. I guess I'm going to pass it off to Abigail.
Wonderful. Hi, I'm Abigail. I grew up in Toronto and kind of got into neurotech through Neurotech X. So not BrainHack, but very, very related. And now I'm a product owner at a neurotech startup that works on in-ear EEG.
Very cool. Also relevant brains. And Arash.
Arash, yes. I'm glad to be here. I'm founder and managing partner of Eliomedica. We're a medical device consulting firm working primarily with physician entrepreneurs. These are people who go crazy with their ideas. They see a need during their practices and they want to build a new product, launch it into market. So we support these people with all sorts of go-to-market, regulatory, and high-level, system-level engineering.
Awesome. And I guess to finish us off, all the way from Europe, we have Manuela.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Manuela Marescotti. I am from, as you can see from my accent, I'm Italian, although I spent the last 15 years, the past 15 years in Edinburgh, where I studied biotechnology at the University of Federico II in Naples. So I have a molecular background. I did a PhD in neuroscience at the University of Edinburgh. And in the past years, after a few years as a postdoc, I joined the Brain Communications Journal, which is a peer-reviewed journal, as a scientific editor. So today, I'm gonna maybe tell you something more about this aspect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Manuela. Just a little comment about the audio. We can get that fixed.
No one heard?
Yeah,
I heard someone.
We can hear you and you can hear us. I think it's
okay. Okay, because someone wrote, I have no audio. Sorry, I saw in the chat. Let's see if it was Victor, just to say.
Thanks.
Okay, but Lindsay can hear me. Okay, that's great. I don't know if...
yes, I will, I'll move us along here. And I've been given a couple of questions to ask, so thank you guys at BrainHack for helping me prep. So I guess the first question here is, panelists, describe your work to the layperson. Why don't we go backwards from how we started? So Manuela, if you want to go first, how would you describe your work to the layperson? Someone who has no experience at all in science or technology, a member of the public.
Okay. At least maybe a member of the public has heard that there are scientists, researchers all around the world that they do carry on research in the labs or studies of any kind within the universities. Well, when like these studies are grouped within like projects, we can say. So in general, there is, like when there is a discovery related, we can say related to the function, maybe the cure of a disease, talking to a person from the, like more from the public. Well, when there is, when a researcher is quite convinced of her work, now has to share that information with the scientific community and also, like in general with the world, I would say. But before sharing that, should publish, to share that it should write these results, the results of the experiments in the format of an article, a document. Now I don't tell you the details of the document, but that should be sent to specific journals that have the job to check carefully these data that have been done properly done, properly analyzed before basically accept them as proper and true real data. And basically what I do, my journal is one of those journals, and my job is to check the rigor, the way that these data have been taken and analyzed. I hope that
No, that's super helpful. So lots of academic publishing, getting that information out there to the public is an important job as, scientists, as we're trying to figure things out in the world, that we communicate our results to people so that they actually understand and can take action on it and actually make a difference. And I'm going to ask the same questions to Abigail and Arash. Arash, how would you explain med device consulting to a person in the public?
I think we're all PhDs and masters, but no, well. Too many PhDs here, it's hard to say anything, but I have a client who is an ICU physician. And so this guy has come up with this idea of a software that can analyze X-ray images to identify specific diseases. And so this is the type of work I do. We partner with these people to help them bring that core technology idea into the market.
That's really cool.
I can explain more.
No, I mean, I think that was fantastic. That's exactly what we're looking for. And Abigail is, for the layperson, what is your startup like? What are they doing?
So we have augmented headphones so that you can quantify and interpret brainwaves. So this means if you're wearing Beats wireless with a tiny string connecting one ear to the other, we can give you extremely accurate readings on your sleep, on your productivity, and a whole bunch of other metrics.
That's cool.
But that was PhD level, Abigail. I didn't even know brain has waves.
No, and here I am thinking what if my AirPods could read my thoughts? We're gonna one day. We had a chat about that, I think a couple of years ago, about single subject prediction and AI, and talking about whether or not we could get, brain imaging to read people's thoughts, basically. But we're not there yet. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, step one is just sleep quality.
Exactly.
Move up from there.
Yeah, and I guess for myself, so as a data scientist at Health Canada, kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's a lot of getting information across anyone who participates in health in Canada. So we're talking everything from medical devices to health products. If you want to do something with a health device or product in Canada, you need to have a license, you need to get inspected, you need to have all these things happen, and this produces a ton of data. And that data ends up on my desk, and I get to look at it and figure out kind of what we have to do about the situation on the ground. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. But I think given that most of the audience here is, kind of like a student, or maybe they're at BrainHack and they're looking for other opportunities beyond here and whatnot. I guess before we can get into how did you get your current job, let's talk about what you did in school and how you went from school to that job first. So what is your background? What are the things that you learned that were useful towards your current work? That kind of stuff. Abigail, if you want to go first. So how your experiences in graduate school prepared you for your transition.
Yeah, so for my undergrad, I did biomedical engineering, and I did internships with neurotech companies, and I spent almost all of my undergrad spending more time on a Neurotech X student club than actually in class. So that I would say is the heart of the learning I took away. So an extracurricular project, making stuff, working in software, experimenting with fun things that I found an interest in. And then after that, I actually went right into startups, working as a software developer and a data scientist. And then I decided I needed more theory and went back and did my master's in clinical neuroscience.
Very cool.
And master's has totally changed the way people interact with me, but more importantly, has given me a really deep, well-rounded knowledge of what you're trying to model and what you're trying to design. So I did a whole bunch of different focus areas throughout my studies, not keeping it consistent, but I found that that tied together in a nice way. So for me, the big benefit was extracurricular work, following things that you're passionate about, and I guess just trying things on your own and not necessarily going too niche.
Making risks and, you know, doing what you want to do and following your passion. I love that. Arash,
What's the question again?
so basically, at one point, we were all in
Why
grad
career
school.
path or why?
So at one point, we were all in graduate school. We kind of decided to go into
Yeah.
academia or whatever, and then we moved on into industry and kind of describe your pathway from that world of pre-grad school or undergrad all the way into grad school and what you've learned from it and how that kind of
I mean,
transitions you into.
thanks for pushing me to think a little bit about what brought me here, because I usually don't have the time to think about it. But I think really to me, I think it was more about, it's hard to say, but probably building a life that I had a picture of, and so education to me was a way to move to North America.
Mhm.
I had $925 in my pocket.
Oh, wow.
And I moved here. So I think for me, it was again like building that or creating a better vision of how my life is gonna unfold itself. And so I started because I had this passion for theoretical science. So I started theoretical physics. I did a lot of, actually my master's thesis was 50 or 60 pages.
Oh, wow.
That's it, and all mathematics. And so why did I do it? I don't know. I was just crazy enough to sit down and do it. But then I discovered that I was more interested in using science to build things. So I did my PhD in engineering physics, where I built sensors for materials inspection. And then I realized that I think I want to go to industry. So I moved into industry, but I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. So I started a mobile app company slash a not-for-profit. I'll tell you more about it later. And then I moved to medical device and then robotics and then consulting. I think I see this as a series of experiments, and each step helped me to better have a clear picture of my vision or my life, to the point where I think right now I'm more into building relationships and understanding what people really need. So that's where I am now. So really transitioning from theoretical physics to engineering, to consulting, to business development, and building my own startup.
I really like that, because I think it's sometimes especially I'd say I'm still early career. So I think of myself and my career as, you know, I did grad school and now I have a job. But like, you know, when you're kind of thinking about the bigger picture, it really is a story. You don't necessarily stay within, you know, one job for a long time necessarily. You kind of hop between things, or your things will develop over time. You can't always predict the future. And it is about the experiences you pick up over that time that kind of inform you about what your interests might be and where you might want to go with your career. I'm gonna pass it off to Manuela to ask the same question. So how did your experiences from pre-grad school or pre-career inform your decisions and lead you towards where you are now?
Yeah, so I have to say I totally agree with the idea that is a path, you know, with a lot of experience that build your vision of life, work. So my at the grad school I studied, as I said, the biotechnology, because I was really interested into reality, the genetics like behind diseases. So then I did a master in medical biotechnology to focus on that. On the other side, since my first project in the lab, I always been within neuroscience. I think a bit because of the imprinting. My father is a psychiatrist, so I always was curious in the relationship between behavior and genes. That said, I was in love with the idea of being in a lab. although in Italy, or at least, you know, even if I come from a big city that is Naples anyway, you know, there is more this culture of underpaying researchers. So I was seeing, you know, PhD students without a salary. And then I said, okay, I want to make the experience having all the tools, you know, like to do it properly. So that's why I decided to do it a PhD abroad. But still, even there, I mean, still I did not find, you know, that experience was still not the best for me. I mean, I have to say I found the life in the lab very stressful. I think when you work with the living matter, you know, like really you depend the cells that are growing. I used to work with fruit flies, so checking these flies, mating, collecting them. So I don't know, like I was spending a lot of time, a lot of stress, but really without big reward. So I finished my PhD, a bit frustrated, not because I did my PhD, just that I don't know, when you feel that you did not find your place yet. And also I thought that I still had to improve my English. After writing the PhD thesis, it's a huge document, of course, in English. And basically, they were looking at the Genetic Society UK for an editor for their newsletter. So I said, okay, would be great. I think this is for me an opportunity to force myself to read, you know, to write, because they were asking some editorials to write. Then, you know, I could network, because anyway, I like to be like usually to network with people. And so basically, I think that was the first time that I said, I think I like more this kind of job. But then during my last postdoc, I had to start to work in Brain Communications, the journal I work for, as an editorial assistant. So I found, you know, like to have a little experience in a peer-reviewed journal to then say, okay, I can become an editor. So I have to say, I think this is just to summarize my path. And I think I like the idea that then you do experiences picturing also the idea of life. So here now I am into academia, situation that I like a lot because, yeah, you interact with many people working on different projects. I read a lot, but I don't have also the stress of the experiments that for me, they were very stressful, I have to say. At some point I liked it, but was not like my idea of life in terms of quality, I would say. So I hope that I address the main points.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I would say, I think the underlying thread I've heard from all three of you so far is follow your passions, follow what you're interested in. And, you know, if you have that interest, like chase it. And I would say like, that's the same story that I have too. So I did my undergrad at UT and my master's at UT when I was, you know, started in an anesthesia lab doing wet lab research on cell and neurons and plates and stuff like that, doing patch clamp, before I moved on to like doing actual grad school research in brains and MRI. And all through that experience, I was picking up, you know, these softer skills of like, not just how do I analyze data, but also how do I talk to people? How do I explain an idea? How do I communicate? You know, as Manuela was just pointing out, that's extremely important. And I think, you know, when I think about how that process prepared me for graduate or for my job now, I think I learned that I loved data during grad school. You know, becoming a data scientist was not really what I thought I would do when I was like 20 or 21. I was on track to go into med school. Met a lot of wonderful doctors who were not, you know, in the place that I would say that I saw myself at. I didn't necessarily want that lifestyle, that stress, that buildup. But I was like, oh, I'm good at data. I like data. I can find jobs in this and I can support myself. And it turns out it's also one of my passions. And I think, yeah, like follow your passions is the message. Don't always do that. And, you know, you'll hopefully, I mean, most of the time, maybe we're a biased sample because we did find the jobs where we are passionate about. but hopefully you'll be able to find that. I do want to actually touch on something I just mentioned, though, the softer skills that you had learned towards your work. So in grad school, you know, we're so focused on all of the research that's happening. Like, how do I do my methods? How do I write out this manuscript in a way that it's not going to get rejected by a journal, or, you know, how do I make it through the system? And that's an incredibly important skill. But at the same time, I think when we're thinking about moving beyond that into a different role outside of academia, you kind of have to think about what else you need to pick up and kind of, build. So what would you say were the most important soft skills that you currently use in your career? And if you're able to, how did you develop that? Or did you even like consciously develop it? I'll pass it to Arash first.
Is there anything else other than data? That's insane. I mean, I wrote all my thesis. I'll tell you what. I wrote at least 50 or 60, maybe 70% of my PhD thesis in a coffee shop.
Mhm.
And the reason was the connection I made with the people at the coffee shop. We're still friends. They're back in Kingston. We're still on Facebook.
Yeah.
I still go see them. I had my birthday in the coffee shop. Yeah, a lot of things. But I think that human touch is what I meant to say that keeps me going in a coffee shop writing my thesis, because I could be anywhere else, maybe here, right? I don't think if we have lack of data scientists, I'm really sorry, or lack of physicists or lack of PhDs, but we do have a lack of people who can connect emotionally with their environment, with their ecosystem. Lack of people who really understand what the needs are. What is it that this person is talking about? Like, it's not about me, it's about the person right in front of you, right? And so I think I kind of knew that that's important, but it was hard to understand, okay, now how can I learn that, right? It's like they say listening is skills or writing is skills, but how? And I think writing a thesis is completely different than, it's not communication skills, it's different. It is. Or it's a different layer of communication. Once we come to industry, we're talking about, like you talk with a client, or you talk with a salesperson, you talk with an engineer. At the end of the day, you're connecting with that person. So active listening skills, or let's say understanding what that person needs are, maybe understanding, even I did a lot of front-end sales. So I got to see people in California and Boston, a lot of the startups run by millionaires. Like there's this surgeon who wants to build a device that can change the color of your eye using laser. And this guy is crazy, like literally, he's a millionaire. Like, how do I even talk with him? Like why even he wants to talk with me, right? So at the end of the day, I was walking with one of these people I remember by Laguna Beach, and I'm not a millionaire, by the way. Yeah. But everything we talked about was about his family, his kids, and there was nothing about the laser system that changes the color of the eye, right? That came last. That was not the important thing. What he wanted to see was, can he connect with me? And at the time I was working with Starfish Medical. So he was more looking to see if we can really connect and understand where he's standing. So a lot of it is really just having a coffee chat with different people and just listening. I don't know, stop me.
No, I think that's fantastic. I love that.
Forever.
That's great.
But you see, my point is the skills we call them soft skills, and I don't know if that's even the right term. It's really today is more about those emotional connections. So if I can manage to put my what you call hard skills away and strip myself out of all those, and still talk with one of you guys today and capture your heart, right? Or as my friend says, throw an axe into your heart, right? Every single day is a sales day for a salesperson, and whether you like it or not. But at a high level, it's about making those deep connections.
I think that's really important, and it's definitely something that, they don't necessarily emphasize when you're in academia is how do you, and maybe it does become more important when you actually get to the project scientist level and you actually have to collaborate with your fellow scientists. But, closer to the graduate student level, you're not necessarily in the position to talk to many people. In fact, it's almost like you're encouraged to focus on your own work and get it done so that you can get out or continue on into your postdoc or so forth. And so, you know, I actually think it's a great idea that you went into a coffee shop and learned, it sounds like that's where you learned that
Yeah.
skill. You learned it through your interactions with others in a public space. And that's certainly carried you into, you know, consulting, where basically every contract is another job application.
And I need to continue here because, so, stop me again, sorry.
All good.
So I did hold this PhD in physics, what is known as physics, and then I did my postdoc and okay, so what am I gonna do next? So I remember I rented a car and I went to Hatch.
Mhm.
Hatch is one of the largest consulting firms, construction. And it was because I found this patent in their profile that I was like, oh, we can build this. So I rented the car and I went directly and I found the director of that division and I knocked at the door. And he was kind of surprised because people nowadays don't do these things, right? But it's like 80s. But we made good friends and he asked me, why should he even hire you? And I didn't have any answers, to be honest. So I never got hired, but anyways, I tried. So I really got tired of building technology. So I started a coffee shop. And I started a coffee shop with the hope that if I know all this scientific stuff, can I really understand people, like people we see every day? Because at the end of the day, I'm building a solution for the society, right? It's not for like highly academic people. And so I started working with newcomers and people with like lower level education, low income. And I learned a lot about connecting with people who don't really understand what you're talking about. Right? I mean, who understand about the ECG, what or MRI or data, what is even data? They don't talk like that, right? And so that also helped me to, I'm talking about how we can learn those soft skills. It's
Yeah.
really hard. I think for me was I started a coffee shop that helped me a lot
Yeah.
before going into startup work. But
Yeah.
another story. I'm gonna stop.
No, that was great. But yeah, I think we should move on to Manuela though. So Manuela, I'm gonna pass you the same question basically. Tell us about, you know, the important soft skills or maybe like the most important soft skill in your job right now. And then the opportunities that you had to develop that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, I have to say, just before starting that, I think you have to always be ready to work on the important soft skills and maybe see if there are more. So it's a constant work, I would say. But I would say within scientific publishing, so for sure, specifically, you have to work on the English understanding and English writing. I'm saying that for whoever is not, like a native speaker like me, it's something that you have to accept, like that the main language is English. So it's something that you have to find a way to improve. My way to improve it was, for sure, I have to say, writing the PhD thesis helped me a lot. Of course, doing it in a country where the main language was English helped even more. So, but so even if you are based somewhere else, it's something that you have to find a way to work on. Then, of course, writing in general, or find a way for organizing the ideas in a way that you can structure like articles of different types. Also, you can go through the articles in that way. And I have to say, on that regard, came in help for me an experience coming from the high school, because in reality at the high school I did, in Italy you can do different kind of high schools based on the more like on literature, more on science, and myself I did like more based on literature. So we were working a lot on how to structure like piece of text. So in reality, even if I was doing that work in Italian, it came very useful later in the years. And I have to say, I did not expect, because when you start a scientific faculty, don't expect that you have to focus a lot of writing. then keep yourself updated. Updated, I think compared to being in the lab, you have to be updated about the general trends, I would say, within, like in my case, in neuroscience. So more general, less specific, of course, because you don't need to have the detail of each project, but like big trends within scientific also publishing and the subject of the journal you at least want to work for. And careful to the details, so focus more on the quality of things than on quantity sometimes, also when writing. And I would say the last thing is just that I would like to follow what Arash just said, the human work on the human aspect. And I think this is in combination also with working within teams. These are things that I think are true for any kind of job. But sometimes I think we don't realize that we always deal with people. So myself being a researcher before and now an editor, so like I've been on the two sides of the papers, so I realize how much I appreciate the work that is behind the articles. So I try to not be even if I have to give bad news, I try to not be that negative. And I encourage always the people to interact with us because we are human beings. So I think it's important to be respectful of people and the work of other people. That's so I would say in general. And this is a constant work, update, work on yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manuela. I really appreciate that too. And they kind of say English is a lingua franca, and I find that funny because it's not French. But yeah, like, it's useful to have, and definitely, knowing the nuances, and it comes back, I think, to your point earlier with Arash, communication is something that I think is a key skill that, you kind of it's alluded to in some of the work that we do in academia and science, and we do some forms of communication, whether it's written and whatever, but there's also an element of it where it's personal interactions and getting to know someone else. But I'm bringing it back to Abigail. So, soft skills, what is a soft skill that you use a lot in your work, and how did you develop that soft skill?
Yeah, well, I think I will kind of build on both of your guys' points because they're very foundational in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, in engineering, they would always really try and drill in user-centric design. Everything you build, who's it for? What's the application? Why are you working on it? What's the benefit? And I think that even though they try and drill it into you in theory, you kind of need to work with people in order to be able to actually experience that. So I could not second more the concept of find a team of people, work with people, work around people, talk about these issues. If you're working on a niche concept within academia, yes, you could go through a million tangents around that circle, but you just really need to always drive home to yourself as well. Why am I doing this? What's the end outcome? What's the point of this, and how will it benefit people or this customer or humanity or my project or whatever it is that you're actually thinking about at the back end. But talking about that through with people and looking at the bigger picture and taking a step back, I think is the most important soft skill that you can learn and that you can apply right now. And whether that's talking about it with your parents or your partner or your coworkers or some random person you meet in a coffee shop, it's just that skill across the board all the time is the number one useful thing you can invest in. And for me now working on the product side, my entire job is obsessing about the customer. Who's the customer? What do they need? What do they want? How do we build it? What validation do we need? What studies do we need to run for Takeda to say yes? There's a million projects going on all the time that are entirely based around that line of thought. And the better you get at it, the better your papers will be, the quicker you'll be to graduate, the better your outcomes will be, the more people will listen to you in job interviews, the better salesman you are, the more you can bring BD or product into whatever you're doing. And I just think it's a really valuable way of leveling up across the board and making life more interesting and making a bigger contribution to the world.
I love that message. The first thing I thought about when you were talking about that was, if there is one opportunity that I can think of at the top of my head to try to develop that ability to, communicate your ideas or learn from other people, it's the 3-minute thesis competition, 3MT, which is, try to explain what you do for grad school in 3 minutes in a presentation. And they kind of explain this as like, imagine you're in an elevator and just randomly met someone and you tried to explain it to them. Like, how would you go about doing that? How would you kind of communicate that? And I think something that, I picked up through my own work, working with people who are not data people. So although I work in a team of data scientists, most of the people I work with, what I would call my clients or the executives that I'm communicating with, they're not data people. They didn't really come up or grow up with, R at their fingertips. They're not thinking in data frames. They use Excel as a database kind of thing. And that's fine. It just means that you have to figure out I always think of it as like, making a bridge between you and the other person, getting a sense for what their level of knowledge is and trying to suss out like, okay, what can I explain? What language can I use? And I know that if I can, talk in something that's close to my language, it's going to be easier for me. But that's not necessarily the goal. If the goal is to ensure that they understand what the issue is, because if they have the decision-making authority or power to make a change, then it's your job to communicate why they need to make that particular decision or change or so forth. So I think, yeah, it really gets back to like, how do you communicate, especially like complex ideas? And I think in grad school, we have a lot of practice doing that, but I would almost say like in long form, in the form of a committee meeting, you're presenting your results of your work and you have 20 minutes to explain it to an audience that is probably well-versed in what you're looking at. And I think kind of like taking that ability and doing the same thing, but then applying it to someone who doesn't know what you do at all is such a useful thing. And I think it just carries not just even within like, work and industry and careers, but it's something that definitely comes out, in just like day-to-day life and meeting friends and being able to have like nice conversations that are about whether it's about work or otherwise, just being able to make those connections, the emotional connections and those bridges. I think that brings us to a really good point. And I know we have to think about like 10 minutes at the end for like questions. So I'm going to try to wrap up this last question really quickly. How did you get to your job now? So most of the people in this room, I think, are, if they're thinking about leaving academia and going into industry, they're thinking like, we know we have the soft skills or we can develop that, but they're not necessarily certain where or what they're supposed to look at or even the jobs available in the market. So how did you find the job that you are right now? And what would you say was the most important thing towards getting that job? And I'll pass it to Abigail first.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest turning point for me switching from academia to industry was getting my first internship in a neurotech startup. And that I did by doing a side project. So I found a company I was really interested, which was Interaxon, who does Muse.
Oh, yeah.
And I built the project with Muse. And I learned how to code with the data and I learned how to read in data from the device using in a legal GitHub repo. And I kind of figured out how it works and played around with it a little bit. And then by the time I reached out to them and actually met with them, I already was familiar enough with things that I could have an intelligent conversation with them, show them what I'm working on, and also be able to understand why. I guess the reason that I was able to come to that conclusion and get that job was by highlighting something that would be of use to them, which is someone that already understands the data in the device and can already make an interesting demo of it that would be a benefit to them. So it kind of circles back to the user-centric thought process across the board. So find a company you like or a couple, find something that would prove your interest in them and your ability to work with them, and then just message people on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Arash.
Is it a quick question or?
Let's try to keep it, let's keep it to like 3 minutes or 2 minutes if you can.
Good.
And then.
All right. I mean, really, I think it was coffee, about meeting people over coffee, and I think I talked with over about 100 people, to be honest. I took the subway from Yonge and Sheppard to Deloitte in downtown, and I talked with many people at Deloitte who I'm still in touch with. Many people at McKinsey, because I love consulting. I applied as well to companies like Synaptive Medical. I got rejected 5 times, but I got into Synaptive through a friend of mine. So at the end of the day, really what got me the first job was through my relationships. The relationships and the trust we built during the graduate school time. This is the best time to build relationships and not data sets. But what remains for us is those relationships. Now I know people everywhere around the world, they're all over the place, which is amazing. One more thing, and is that the last question? Because
It's the last question that's officially on the list right now, so.
okay. I got that first job and I really want 1 minute because I have to convey this today. I'm willing to take and go to the end and say getting a job is a disaster. And I'm so happy that today I'm here with all the PhDs and graduate students. I would say instead of looking for opportunities, we are in a position where we can create opportunities. So there is no need to look for jobs. Let's hopefully they're not going to kick me out of campus. And I see the career path again as a series of experiments where you can run these experiments and fail is totally okay. You might end up getting a job, but today we can experiment and this is so unique. So for me, it was not about getting a job, it was more about getting to a point where I can be me, myself. So when you ask me who you are, I'm not gonna say, I work for General Motors as a director of blah, 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 but I would say, this is Arash, I built this, and this is my uniqueness. I don't even want to be different, I want to be unique. So if we go to that direction, we will get the best jobs or we will create the best opportunities. That's my point. And I'm gonna stop here because we ran out.
Yes, I'm gonna pass it off to Manuela for your question. So how did you how did you find your actually say if you're able to say your first job, how did you find your first job and then what were the important skills towards that?
Yeah, so I have to say that one key experience, so I would say, yeah, before getting the actual job, I think I made a key experience that was key for me. That was actually being an editor, as I said before, of the Genetic Society newsletter, because this helped me to practice, to put in practice this idea that I had. That I thought that a role like that could be good for me. So that from this comes an advice try things if you think that you can like it. Sometimes can be also for free, like in that case. But I was anyway part of an important society, like in UK. So anyway, gave me anyway a lot of opportunities. Then this was having this in my CV was great to get the other. Sorry, I did not say that experience. The position that I knew about the Genetic Society, I got it from LinkedIn. So look a lot around, use the social media to check if there are things that could be useful for you. The following one I found on the Edinburgh Neuroscience newsletter. So find sometimes the good newsletters and look into that. This one of Edinburgh, I have to say, is a very, always gave me useful information in the years. And actually, because I knew that to go into an academic journal, I needed to have a peer review experience, but I was not sure, to move maybe to London because there are London, Cambridge, Oxford, the main journals or headquarters of the journals in UK. Because anyway, just got I was recently married. I had my first son. Sometimes life changes, so you don't want to do too many changes when you are not sure. And I saw that Tara Sparks-Jones, that is it's a great scientist within Alzheimer's. She just became editor-in-chief of Brain Communications journal that was just founded and was looking for an editorial assistant part-time. So I said, I can do that part-time, and I proposed to my past PI to do the other part-time to finish my postdoctoral project. So because they were next door buildings, basically, so I could do it practically. And then basically, when I finished the postdoc, they offered me a scientific editor position full-time. I was upgraded. So basically, I think you have to look around, use these tools that we have nowadays to see if there are things that you can try that can allow you to explore, ideas that you don't know, you're not sure yet. And sometimes even if you know, like at the beginning I was editorial assistant, so was maybe also in that case I was a bit paid less compared to my postdoc job. So sometimes also in a first downgrade could anyway allow you to put a foot into you know, like a context that is better for you, where you can grow and that you like more. And I just want to say the last thing, following also what Arash said, it's not easy, to find a job. So sometimes I think that's why, like, planning a bit in advance, based on what you like, make you like, I think on one side, find the easier way to, you know, to get more ready, you know, for an application. Because when I applied for the editorial assistant job, I was sure that I was getting it, because who has a neuroscience experience in the lab and an editorial experience? I thought that not many people had that. And on the other side, yes, you can also build up the role like on yourself. That is, I think, super important to give the personal aspect to that role. So I hope that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I'm just gonna echo what you guys were saying, is that it's not just the, you know, finding all these jobs or whatever. Like for myself, when I was trying to find a job, I actually found it really difficult at first. I was unemployed for about a year, so that was not ideal. And yeah, and I thought I was doing all the right things. I was applying to a lot of different areas, a lot of different places, LinkedIn or whatever. And I discovered my passion was really data during grad school. So I was trying to find jobs in data. Turns out when you try to apply for jobs in data in industry without a degree in comp sci or physics or something, you know, you come up with neuroscience. For whatever reason, they don't believe you. And I'm like, but I swear I spent years on a supercomputer doing like giant analyses. Like I know how to do this. So what worked for me though was, and I'm gonna go back to, you know, talking to people and having conversations with them, was networking. So the job that I have right now with Health Canada, I was introduced to it through a colleague of mine at my current work, and her partner is a member of the BrainHack community and has been for several years, Derek Beaton. So if you know Derek, he does a lot of like stats work and does a lot of like stuff with data, with analysis. I was trying to learn that.
Yeah, it's a BrainHack community too.
And Jenny as well. So actually the reason I start with Derek though is because I had been at a point where I was, you know, looking for any job a year into it, texting all the people I knew, like, do you have any opportunities, blah, blah, blah. I knew Derek had started becoming the new director at St. Michael's Hospital for data analytics. And so I was like, like, I wonder if he has something. It was like, not now, but maybe in a couple months. I know Jenny, who's also a brain hacker, is also doing this, and he could speak towards, you know, my own ability in doing data and analysis and knowing how to do math and whatever. But really it was that I had worked with Derek a little bit. I had chatted with him, I had talked with him, and then he put the right connection with me. That was the one connection that worked. There was a lot that didn't work out, but I think, you know, finding, especially that first job, it's kind of like dating, you know, like you're gonna go through a couple of different opportunities. You might go on a couple of dates, a couple of interviews with your potential employer, and most of the time you kind of have to learn that it won't work out. You won't necessarily know why, and you kind of have to like just take it and not think too hard about it and move on from there and just keep going at it until you get that opportunity. But what worked was networking, and every single time I did do it, it like, you know, exactly, you need coffee. So I guess that pretty much brings us to the end.
I want to say one thing, sorry, just to comment what you said. I think also sometimes that the networking that apparently does not give you an obvious and positive outcome can help you, or can come back later in the years, or sometimes make you understand what you know, like which is your interest, what you have done maybe wrong in that moment. So everything, I think, is also key. Take the good side of all these networking and exploring. Sorry, I just saw.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that brings us to, I think it's already 11, but if we're able to say like, give 5 minutes for some questions, let's do it. I see a hand, Gia.
So thank you guys so much for your insights, especially I'm leaving academia the second I get my PhD, so that's super helpful.
Yeah.
I just want to know if there was anything you guys particularly struggled with or faced any challenges in your transition to industry. What did you find most difficult and how did you circumvent it?
My goodness.
I'll take this. You know, figuring out how to market yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's when I started applying for jobs, and I think what I was doing wrong was I was explaining what I did for grad school. I was like, I studied Alzheimer's disease. I used like Free Surfer or all these like programs of what I should have been doing was I needed to emphasize what are the skills I actually learned. I learned to code in R. I learned to work with large data. I learned to work with distributed computing clusters. I learned to also communicate information through presentations and realizing that that's what you actually take away from grad school, or rather not necessarily take away, but that's what your future employer is looking for when they're trying to hire you. Realizing that was what the goal was kind of like a switch for me. So I think for the first 3 months, I was still doing it the old way of like, this is what I did, this is my thesis, everything. And then I kind of changed my resume. And that made a big difference because it was like, okay, people can put, actually contextualize what you can do and what you can offer. And I think when you're thinking about, just applying for jobs, it's like, at the end of the day, the person on the other side is thinking, how is this individual going to bring value to the organization that I'm working with? If we're going to invest, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into potentially giving you a job at this place, like we want to know that you're going to do something for us that will actually make us better. And so part of that, I think, is putting yourself in their shoes and then thinking about what they would be looking for. And that's kind of the advice about, tailor your resume, tailor your cover letters, all that kind of stuff. But I'll pass it off to anyone else who has a response.
Yeah,
Abigail,
I have a different answer.
Okay, yes, let's do it.
So for me, the hardest thing was figuring out what I actually wanted to do. That was really, really super tough for me. I knew I liked neurotech, and that was about it. I was like, I'm kind of interested in everything. I'm okay at a couple things. Let's see how it goes. And I just the approach I took was get in anywhere you can. And then figure it out once you're there. Because it's a lot easier to look around once you're in a company you're interested in working on a product you're interested in and say, oh, I wonder what's going on in that mechanical engineering room over there. Maybe I just talk to the people and see if I want to try that out. Or now I'm working on research. Do I like the ML stuff or do I more like the maintenance of it? What exactly am I interested in here? Do I want to do more research and psychology here, or what am I interested in? Or maybe actually I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to be around any of these technical people ever again, and I want to get all the way over there. I don't know. It's a lot. I found it a lot easier to be in person, talking to everyone on the teams and try out a couple different stuff. But that again comes back to coffee.
Right.
Which is meet with everyone that could possibly meet with you in the companies you have any interest in.
Mhm.
And that will help you understand kind of what you're looking for as well.
Even decaf.
Exactly. Tea.
Tea, and I think particular to your question, I think one challenge probably many of us have initially is like we talk a lot about these are the things I've done, these are the things I can do, these are my skills. I don't care. Like I don't care about, no one cares about your skill sets. But they do care about your core value proposition. What can you do for the business? So a lot of it is now not about talking about my skill set. It's about somehow echoing the fact that I'm there for you to listen and understand what your business needs are, and then adapt, use my skills to create values for the business. And that mindset is totally different than I can analyze this, I can do that. I mean, this is so rigid. You know what I'm saying? It's so a one-page resume, I'm talking about job hunting now, which I hate. But let's stay on that path for a moment. A resume is not more than a page, and what it reflects is that I'm there to listen to you and create values for your business. That's who you want to be. Anything other than that is not a PhD level. You'll be given a task, but you need a career path. You're building a career path as an intellectual person, right? Not as a task doer. So that's what I would say. And it's not easy to say how to do it. Oftentimes, I think the coffee chats would help because you can talk and you have the opportunity to just listen actively and demonstrate that you're that person rather than a bunch of skill sets. Because guess what? There's so many people doing it better than me with a wider set of skill sets. But, and go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if I could build off that, I found what was really useful at the coffee chats is figuring out what other people are looking for in core values positions that they're hiring
Exactly.
and the value they see in me. So it's often hard to figure it out yourself unless you're going up to people and saying, hey, why would you hire me? And
Exactly.
why don't you care about me?
That's
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you need
Yeah.
from a
And
wide selection of interviewers.
I know we're running out of time, but I have to say this, but you need to understand where in the business you want to be. Let's say there's a company that builds products and then sell the product out in the market. Like you could be in the product team, you could be in the business development team, you could be front-end sales. You have to make a life that is financially stable. You need to make a lot of money, period. You want to make impact, you want to do a good job, you want to make very good money. Like if you spend years at a school, you're going to make very good money. And to do that, you want to be closer to the revenue generation of the company. That's where you want to be. You have to picture, you have to see yourself within the organization and better understand how am I adding values to the business, maybe bringing new clients in. Can you do that? But if you position yourself as a researcher sitting in a corner doing research, which is totally fine, right? It's invaluable, but I'm saying you need to see that big picture and see yourself, see where you want to be. And that's what you articulate when you talk with people. Do you want to be closer to the revenue generation? Do you want to be closer to the front end sales? Do you want to bring in new clients? Do you want to go back and do research? These are very different things.
And I'll let Manuela also, if you have anything to add,
Yeah, just well, for me, although I agree with what my co-panelist said, I just want to say instead that some, I talk about a feeling that you may have when you leave, like academic research, and you go for another job. Sometimes just be cautious that you may feel or be judged sometimes as a person that has not been successful doing research. I felt a bit like that originally, while I found that I found my place outside academic research. So be careful about that feeling, because make you feel down at the beginning. So just don't care about that. That is really an advice, like also based on the experience of other people with similar experiences.
brilliant. All right. Yeah, I think that brings us to 10 minutes over time.
I have to say this, Anna. Like I'm saying this deep from my heart.
Yes.
Because I did my PhD and postdoc. Don't run away from academia. Like with everything I said, there's nothing wrong with being in academia, being a researcher, being a postdoc, being an academic, whatever. It's the point is where can we create values? It's the point is not to get out and go to industry. Like it's where do I create values? That's my point. So don't run away from where you are. Just see where you can create values and just dig deep in there.
And all of our soft skill suggestions are also positive if you're a researcher.
Mhm.
Not industry
Actually,
specific.
researchers get paid a lot. Like when I was at Abigail, you can be that researcher that whole the organization, whole the product relies on you. You can be that person.
And do you see a hand from Manuela?
Yeah, just you have to find your place now. Nothing against academia, as they say, like in academia, outside, but just don't be scared to find where which is your real context, to give value to yourself, and of course, to the context where you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Manuela, Arash, Abigail, myself, Nathan. Yes. Yeah, we're learn things. Yeah. So much, guys. Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and happy to join even
We
if
just saw you guys a
remotely.
little
Oh my
thank you
goodness.
gift. That's cute. Thank you so much. That's so fun.
Thank you. I'm not hearing anything. Sorry, you are muted, I think. Cannot hear anything. It's like muted. You are muted. I'm not muted. Yeah, you are muted, yes. Okay, now I can hear you. Yes.
Can hear us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
It's a journey.
Can you hear me?
We hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
There you are.
yeah. I don't know if you hear me. Just I want. Yeah, no, I mean, just thank you very much for the invitation. Like I'm happy always to, I'm involved in also these career, like transitions events here more in UK, and it's great, to share, to give ideas, to whoever wants to, like, want to embrace a path that sometimes is not given for granted.
Yeah, thank you for saying, is this correct?
For me, it's 4:15. Don't worry, here is dark because we are in the dark months, so don't worry, it's not that terribly late. It's just we are in dark.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
See you again.
Thank you.
Have a good Friday.
Bye.
Bye.